Welcome everyone to the City of Durham Water Management's PFAS treatment upgrade project update. This is a public information meeting that was held on July 22nd, 2025. We are re-recording the introductory slides for this meeting due to a technical issue. For this meeting, we have from the Department of Water Management, Lori Montgomery, Senior Engineering Manager. Lori will be doing most of the speaking later on. Jenny Young, Principal Engineer. Ben Mason, Engineer. Joe Lunny, with Communications for the Department of Water Management. And Tom Lucas, the Superintendent of the Brown Water Treatment Plant. The agenda for this meeting, we're going to discuss the department's commitment to safe drinking water. Then we're going to review Durham's drinking water system and treatment facilities. And then we'll talk about our PFAS treatment upgrade project, which will help explain what is PFAS, what are the PFAS regulations and rules, and then what is the City of Durham Water Management doing for PFAS treatment and compliance. And Lori Montgomery will give an update on that. And then we're going to talk about that project's compliance and its timeline, and we'll review additional information and resources, and then we'll take questions. Water Management's mission statement is to provide cost-effective water and wastewater services that meet customers' expectations and all regulatory requirements. We take pride in our commitment to safe drinking water, serving more than 300,000 Durham residents daily with 100% compliance with all federal drinking water standards. Each June, we publish our annual drinking water quality report, and you can use that QR code to find that report. Let's talk briefly about Durham's drinking water system. Our water sources are Lake Mickey and Little River Reservoir, which you can see kind of up at the top of the screen. Eventually, we'll use Tier Quarry as a reservoir for drinking water. It's not presently online, but we can use it in emergency situations. And then we have, at the moment, 2 water treatment plants, the Brown Water Treatment Plant and the Williams Water Treatment Plant. And I'm going to turn it over to Lori to talk about that.
The Brown Water Treatment Plant is shown in the photo on the left. Again, that is the largest water treatment plant that we have in the city of Durham. It has a maximum capacity of 42 million gallons per day. And the Williams Water Treatment Plant is shown on the right. That plant on average produces about 9 or 10 million gallons of finished drinking water per day for our customers. Brown Water Treatment Plant was built in the 1970s. The Williams Water Treatment Plant was built in 1915, so even before Lake Mickey Dam, we had the Williams Water Treatment Plant. Both of these plants have been upgraded multiple times over the decades. As the city grows and we need to be able to produce more drinking water, we continue to upgrade these plants and make sure that all the assets there remain reliable and in good condition. Okay, so we're here to talk about PFAS. PFAS are also known as forever chemicals because they are very resistant to breaking down in the environment. Studies have shown that PFAS can pose health risks. So we're very concerned about that. That's why we want to make sure that we upgrade our treatment processes so that we can remove those compounds from the water. These are not naturally occurring. They're widely found in consumer products, commercial products, and even things that we use in our homes every day and things that we buy at the store. They begin being produced around the 1940s, and because they are so persistent in the environment, they've just built up over the decades, and that's where we are today. Another couple of QR codes here. These will link you to information from the US EPA. The top one is sort of a basic explanation about PFAS, more background information, and then understanding the health risks. That you can get to that from the QR code there on the bottom. So we talked a little bit about some sources of PFAS, but to get in more detail about that, does anybody here think that maybe they used a product today that has PFAS in it? Anybody want to take a guess? I see a lot of hands. What do you think you may have used today that has PFAS here in the blue shirt? Personal care products? Potentially. Anybody else? A skillet? Cookware? Yeah, those are both common sources. So this graphic shows a lot of the other common sources. We have food packaging here. This can be takeout containers or things that you buy at the grocery store that are packaged. Clothing and textiles. The waterproof and stain-resistant clothing that we use can contain PFAS. Someone mentioned personal care products, shampoos. One thing I learned pretty recently is that even the dental floss that I was using, the plastic dental floss, can have PFAS. And so I started trying to use a natural dental floss that's not as easy to use, but it doesn't have PFAS, so worth the trade-off. Commercial and household products, cleaning products. Someone mentioned a skillet, nonstick cookware are common sources. And then, of course, we all think of industrial discharges and industrial operations. Those are also sources of PFAS, but it's important to remember that most of the PFAS that we come in contact with are from these other sources of things that we're using in our everyday lives. So it's important that we understand that and think about that as we're making decisions about what to buy and what we use and what we bring into our homes. Last April in 2024, the EPA announced new standards for the first time to regulate 6 known PFAS compounds in drinking water. And they said that all utilities had to be compliant with these new regulations by 2029. The 6 known compounds that they chose to regulate are shown here in this table. You can see PFAS and PFOA on the top are regulated at a level of 4 nanograms per liter or parts per trillion. And then there are 4 others here that are regulated at a level of 10 parts per trillion. Then just a couple of months ago, in May of 2025, the EPA issued a press release saying that they intend to delay the compliance deadline to 2031. There has been no official rulemaking related to that, but that's the best information we have at this time, is that they have announced that intention. And along with that, they announced the intention to reevaluate the 4 PFAS compounds that are shown at the bottom of the table. So they intend to keep the 4 parts per trillion level for PFAS and PFOA and reevaluate the other 4. So we don't know if the limit for the other 4 will be changing or if they will be changing the constituents that they're regulating altogether. That remains to be seen. When we look at these regulations, it's important to know that PFAS is a family of chemicals and a family of compounds. There are many, many, many PFAS out there, compounds out there. EPA has just chosen to regulate these 6 initially as a starting point. So we talked about the level of 4 parts per trillion. What does that really mean? What does that really look like? If we think about 1 part per trillion and we think about an Olympic-sized swimming pool, think about 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools. 1 part per trillion, let me go back to this. 1 part per trillion is 1 drop of water in 20 of those Olympic-sized swimming pools. So 1 drop of water in 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools is 1 part per trillion. 4 parts per trillion would be 4 drops of water in 20 of those Olympic-sized swimming pools. So this regulation is very stringent. This is a very low level of PFAS that will be allowable. So what have we done so far to figure out how we're going to meet this regulation? We started with source water sampling. We started a study with a consulting firm, HDR, and we have several folks from HDR here in the room with us tonight to help answer questions. And one of the first things that we did under that study was to do source water sampling. We wanted to know what is in our water system when it comes to PFAS. The city of Durham proactively started sampling for PFAS even before this study in 2018. So, we became concerned about this and we wanted to understand, are there potential sources of contamination that we need to be looking at? What constituents do we really have in our specific water supplies? And we wanted to be able to use that information to help engineers such as myself and the consultants with HDR to understand which treatment processes out there would be the best to remove PFAS from our specific water here in Durham. This is what that source water sampling showed us. The dashed line in red, the horizontal dashed line, is set at that 4 parts per trillion regulatory limit. The blue bars represent PFAS contamination, PFAS levels that were measured, and the orange bars represent PFOA levels that were measured. And you can see 6 years across the bottom from 2019 to 2025, the data that we have so far in 2025. Concentration is on the left-hand side. And for each of these years, we're showing the average of those 2 constituents that we measured in Lake Mickey and Little River. So you can see that every year we have measured PFAS levels that exceed that 4 parts per trillion for PFOA and PFOS. So the next thing we wanted to do was to evaluate our existing treatment plants and understand whether our treatment plants that we have today are doing anything to remove PFAS from the water. We have a conventional treatment process at both of our water plants. And what we learned is that this conventional treatment process that we have of settling and filtration does not remove PFAS to below the regulatory limits. And that's shown here in this graph. So this data shows us, again, that for both Lake Mickey and Little River coming to the plant, this graph shows finished water. So this is showing you the concentrations of PFAS in the water after it's been treated and as it's leaving the plant. Same 6 years, 2019 to 2025. Same dashed red line at that regulatory limit of 4 parts per trillion. And we still have PFAS and PFOA coming out of the plant at levels above that very stringent 4 parts per trillion. So that told us we have levels just high enough that we need to do something about it. We're actually pretty fortunate in Durham. We have much lower levels of PFAS in our raw water than many of our surrounding neighbors and water utilities, but still high enough that we have to do something about it in order to be able to meet the regulation. So we started testing some of the commonly accepted and well-proven treatment technologies that are known to remove PFAS. And when we started this testing, we had several different objectives and criteria that we were looking at. Number one, water quality. So we wanted to make sure that the technology that we choose is going to remove the PFAS and get it below that regulatory limit that we need to meet. we'll have to consider the impact on the community, and that can be everything from construction projects that are going to be disruptive to the community to cost. I mean, when we have to do large capital projects to improve our treatment plant, there's a cost associated with that, and that some of that is shown in the rates that our customers pay. So we have to think about making decisions that balance that cost versus effectiveness perspective. System reliability is important, so we want to make sure that we are choosing a well-proven technology that will have high levels of consumer confidence, and everyone can feel comfortable that it's going to work and it's going to work well. It needs to be compatible at our existing treatment plants with the current processes that we have, and it needs to be scalable. As our treatment plants grow and we have to expand them, we need to select a technology that we can also easily expand along with that. So what we selected was powder activated carbon, also known as PAC. PAC is a commonly used water treatment plant tool, and it's used to both remove organic compounds from the water, as well as it also has a benefit that it removes PFAS. PFAS is it basically absorbs the PFAS onto the PAC, and it's added at the front end of the treatment process as the water is coming from the lakes or the raw water source and into the treatment plant. As it goes to the treatment process, the PAC settles along with the rest of the material in the raw water that settles, and that has to be removed and handled as a residual product. So that is a consideration that we have with whatever we choose. The PFAS is going somewhere and it's going to be attaching to something, and that will have to be disposed of properly in accordance with all regulations as well. A lot of our neighbors use PAC. This silo that you see on the right is a PAC silo that's being used now at the water treatment plant in Cary, Apex, and they are achieving very good results on PFAS removal using PAC. I talked about some of the things that we were looking at in making this decision and some of the criteria that was important to us. I talked about it needs to be a proven technology, which PAC certainly is. It needs to have a wide-ranging positive impact on our overall water quality. So PAC not only removes PFAS, it removes organic material, which is also something that we have to deal with on a daily basis. It's very easily scaled up, and it's very cost-effective compared to some of the other technologies that are out there. Again, we're very fortunate because our levels of PAC here in Durham are relatively low compared to some of our neighbors. And that means that PAC will work for us. We have pretty low levels. We don't have as much to remove. If we had higher levels of PFAS, it could be possible that we would have had to choose a different technology that could be much more expensive. So PAC is nice because it provides us a cost-effective solution now, and it allows us some time as the technology continues to evolve with treatment. 5 years, 10 years down the road, there may be much more sophisticated tools than what exists today. So we're able to make a cost-effective capital investment now and still continue to reevaluate as time goes on if we need to do something additional or more robust in the future. Another thing that we're doing is public education efforts. So tonight was the first event such as this that we've had. I'm sure that we'll be doing more in the future, but we have a lot of information on our website. All the data, all the monitoring and sampling data that we've done since 2018 is on our website. So you can go there, you can look at all the data for yourself and see everything that we've measured. A link to our website. And lastly, we continue to communicate with regulators to make sure that we understand the regulations and make sure that we understand what is coming and how to meet them. As far as our compliance timeline, on the left, we see this April 2024 That was the month that the regulations were first released. And then the EPA, as part of that regulation, required initial monitoring for all utilities. So all utilities are required to monitor for PFAS between 2024 and 2027. Fortunately, we were already doing that. We've been doing that since 2018. So we were already in compliance with that part of the regulation. Once 2027 hits, between 2027 and 2029, the rule requires regular compliance monitoring and public notification. So even though the rules will not have gone in place yet as far as the 4 and 10 parts per trillion, if utilities monitor and see their sampling shows that they have levels higher than the regulatory limits, they will be required to report that to their customers. Again, we're already doing that. All of our data is available on our website, and we break it down and provide that notification and that information in our annual water quality report. So we were already in compliance with that part of the rule as well. We still plan to be compliant with the rule by 2029. So just because the deadline has been extended to 2031, that is not slowing down our project or the pace of the design and construction of our PFAS treatment upgrade. We don't know with certainty what will happen. With 2031 will be the deadline. Information is changing, it seems like, on a daily, weekly basis. So we have to continue to keep our finger on the pulse of the regulations, but our plan stays the same to continue on with our project and be compliant by 2029. So what can you do in the meantime? It's a few years to go between now and 2029. The EPA recommends that concerned consumers use a filter in their homes. So there's several QR codes here where you can go to the EPA website and learn more about the different types of filters that they recommend. And you can also go here to keep up to date with any new regulations and recommendations that they may have. Some of the types of filters that you can use in your home, a very common, inexpensive one is a GAC, granular activated carbon. Again, it works similar to PAC. It absorbs the PFAS and traps it on the filter as the water passes through. So, I mean, these can be something that you put on your faucet, something as simple even as a Brita filter. A lot of people have carbon filters on their refrigerator. So, you can see what type of filter you may already have, and then you can go to the EPA website to see if that's one of the filters that they recommend for removing PFAS. A reverse osmosis or RO system also works. That's a process that forces water through an extremely thin barrier that physically separates the PFAS from the water. This is also a type of filter that's available to purchase, and you can install these in your home. Another is ion exchange resins. These are little tiny beads that act like magnets. Again, they attract and sort of hold on to the PFAS and attract them. They get stuck on the filter. So this is the information that we've prepared for you tonight. Does anyone have questions that you would like to ask? We're here to do our best to answer your questions, and I've got a lot of staff and consultants here to support me in that. So, any questions in the room? Yes.
If I could,
yes.
I would like to make sure each person says this on the microphone. So,
great.
I'm sorry.
People out in Zoom land want to hear your question.
I'm just curious about where the activated carbon comes from, like what raw materials?
That is an excellent question, Kate. Kate is one of our consultants with HDR.
Hi, good evening. So activated carbon is actually produced, it's produced from several mines, and then it's actually pressurized so that it forms like a very porous, can be best described as a sponge. Honestly, it has like a lot of sites on it that contaminants will actually cling to. So does that answer your question? Typically, Typically, they come from like the Northeast. Most manufacturers are located there. Typically, the mines for the carbon are in the Northeast. Yeah, yep.
We have several questions from Zoom land if,
Are there others in the room with questions?
okay. He's got a microphone. He's going to hand you right there.
Thanks. I was wondering what standard test methodology you were employing. The EPA has several, and if so, are you looking at more than just the regulated compounds? Because most of those involve 40 different that are kind of a part of the typical test methodology. We
are sampling for many more than just the 6 regulated compounds. And again, you can go on our website and see all of the ones that we're sampling for. And as far as the test methodology, I always get the number confused, so I'm going to punt that to either Tom or Ben.
Hi, it's 533, right? Yes, EPA 533.1, or 537, one or the other? Both of them?
So yeah, the test methodologies that are used are also listed on the city's website. But yes, they are for each panel. It is not just looking at the 6 contaminants that are currently regulated. So all of the data is up for pretty much all of the testing that they've done. So I think all the testing that they've done since 2018.
Yes, that's correct. One more.
Thanks. I had a question about the PAC system that y'all are looking at. How often does that activated carbon have to be changed over? And when you do change it over, or if you do, what happens to that activated carbon after it's spent?
Sure.
Where's it sent and disposed of?
So since we'll be adding PAC in powder form directly to the water as it comes into the plant, it will settle out in the settling basins with the rest of the treatment plant residuals that settle out. So it will become mixed with those treatment plant residuals, and it will be removed from a contractor, and that will need to be likely landfilled. We intend to dose the PAC upstream of what we call our terminal reservoir at the plant. So most of the PAC will fall out in that first reservoir. It will settle out in that first reservoir. So periodically, we will need to go in and dredge that material out and have it disposed of in a way that meets whatever regulations happen to be in place at the time. Today, that material would be landfilled. In the future, if it becomes regulated in a different manner, it could have to be disposed of in a different way.
I guess as a follow-up to that, with the landfill method, is there any concern of it leaching out of a liner?
That is a concern, yes, and that is why it would have to be taken to a regulated landfill. Landfills are also now being required to monitor their leachate, and they're being required to test the material that they take for PFAS. So yes, that is a concern, and that is how we would address that.
Anyone
Any other
else
questions
in the room? Okay. We've got many online, so here we go. Okay, first question, is the primary source of PFAS in Durham's drinking water the water from Jordan Lake? What is the approximate proportional contribution to our drinking water between Jordan Lake, Lake Mickey, and Little River Reservoir? I'm going to turn that over to Tom Lucas, who's the superintendent of the Brown Water Treatment Plant.
Hello. So right this second, we do not use Jordan Lake as a primary source of drinking water. We use Lake Mickey and Little River, and we try and blend the water from each lake in our reservoir at the Brown Reservoir, the Brown plant. Roughly, right now it's about 50-50-ish It kind of depends on what the water quality in each lake's looking like. We try and blend it for the best of results.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Are the filters in our refrigerators enough to remove the PFAS?
So again, we would recommend that you go to EPA's website and check your refrigerator, your specific refrigerator filter, to see if that model number filter that you have is a filter that will remove the PFAS. In many cases, yes, it will be, but not all of them necessarily are. So you need to check your specific refrigerator filter against the EPA's website.
Okay, sort of a comment and a question. Thank you for your care and attention to getting this right. Why can't we go faster? So in terms of the process of building the PAC system and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent question. So we have actually selected a delivery method that will be faster than our typical delivery method for construction projects. And we selected that method, progressive design build, because it allows us to select an engineering team and a construction team together as part of the same team. So with a traditional construction process, we design the thing, we bid the thing, we hire a contractor to build the thing. This process allows those two parties, the engineer, the design engineer, and the construction contractor, to get on board together at the beginning and sort of design the system together so that we can build it faster once we get a design in place. So we are doing everything that we can to expedite that. Building a major public works project does take time. There are many engineers of different disciplines that will be part of designing this treatment process. It will have to be permitted by the state. That is a thing that also takes time. So we intend to expedite this as much as possible. You know, this is our best estimate of how long that we think it will take. And we think this is a conservative estimate. We hope we can do it faster than this. Some of the engineer and construction teams that propose on the project may think that they can do it faster. If they can do it faster, that will be part of our, selection process. So we're doing everything that we can to expedite it, but it is a large public works project that will take some time.
Okay, thank you. Periodically, our top water smells foul. What might be the cause of this and how can that be mitigated? So a couple things about that. We do have taste and odor events throughout the year when our lakes turn over. I would encourage everyone, if you ever have a water quality issue, to call our dispatch and report it immediately. We want to know, and that phone number is 919-560-4344, and let us know. So, Tom, would you like to add anything to that?
I think you covered most of that, Joe. Some of the sources, or most of the sources of taste and odor are indeed from our lakes. We also get algae blooms sometimes out in the lakes, and that does affect us as well.
And that doesn't affect the safety or quality of the water. It's just
it
sort
is
of
an
aesthetic.
It is an aesthetic quality. It is not a health risk.
Okay, thank you. Got a question here. Do we know the source? Oh, excuse me. Do we know how the source water is becoming contaminated?
Also a great question, and that was really the root of the source water monitoring that we did in the first part of this study that I talked about. We sampled at many different spots in the watershed to try and narrow down whether we could tell if PFAS was coming from one specific source or from one concentrated area. We did not find any smoking gun that we were able. It would be great if we did, right? Because then we could just go to that and figure out how to make it stop. But this is not what we have in Lake Mickey and Little River are not from specific point sources or specific industrial dischargers. This is background concentrations that we have in the environment. I think that it's important to remember that, and it's important to go back to what we talked about earlier in the presentation. These chemicals have been being manufactured in our country and in our state for almost 100 years now, and they don't break down quickly. So they've been manufactured, released, and they've been building up that entire time. So a lot of what we see, we believe here in Durham is just this sort of background contamination that exists all around us. And as I mentioned, we're actually very fortunate here because many of our neighboring utilities have much higher levels than what we have here in Durham.
Thank you for that answer. Next question. Is there a cost estimate for the PAC upgrades to the city and then possibly to ratepayers?
Sure. Yes, there will be a cost impact. We are currently estimating that the PAC system will cost around $15 million. That number could change. We have experienced a lot of rapid inflation within the construction industry in recent years, and we don't know whether that's going to continue, whether that's going to stabilize. Things are rapidly changing with the economy. So right now, our best estimate for engineering and construction is around $15 million. And yes, that will go into, every year we have a consulting firm, Raftalis, that is an expert in helping water utilities set their rates based on the capital projects that we have to pay for. So this is one of many, many capital projects that we're doing within our water system that will go into that rate model. I cannot tell you today how many cents per month it might add to your water bill every month from this one PAC system, but that $15 million will go into the model and will become, part of our rate setting. So that's what I'll say about that.
Got it. Okay, I'd like to add one point onto that, in that the water department is a utility fund. So all our operating and our capital, that all comes from ratepayers.
Right.
We don't get tax money to provide the water. It's all ratepayer based. So just to follow up on that. Next question.
Thanks for clarifying that, Joe.
You're welcome. And so the next question is sort of follow up to the Jordan Lake. There are times we get water from Jordan Lake through Cary, I believe. What are the levels of this water, given that we're spending a lot for the Western Intake project to have Durham access its Jordan Lake allocation directly? My impression is that Jordan is a water source with a lot more pollution, including more PFAS than our current lakes. Is that true?
Okay, there was a lot to that question. So I'm going to start with the part about, I believe we're getting water from Cary through our interconnect. We do have an interconnect with the town of Cary and the Cary Apex water treatment system. So we can get water from them and they can get water from us. It is not common that we are getting water from Cary during certain, if we have a really large water main break and we are unable to meet demand while we're making that repair, that's an example of a time when we might get water from one of our neighbors. Or if we're doing a major construction project at one of our treatment plants and it's going to limit the capacity temporarily that we'll be able to produce at one of our treatment plants. That would be another example of when we might get water from one of our neighbors, including Cary. So it's not typical that we are getting water from Cary or that we are getting water from Jordan Lake today. Yes, We are building a Western Intake Partnership treatment
I
plant.
would say
on
within the
Jordan
next
Lake.
45 minutes.
Jordan Lake is much larger than the two lakes, Lake Mickey and Little River, that we have right now. It's a much larger storage volume. It's a much larger watershed, so it is much more resilient to drought. That it is a wonderful thing that we will have access to that water directly rather than having to purchase it through interconnects when we need it. As Durham grows, you know, we have to find new water sources. So Jordan Lake is a great option for us. There are water treatment challenges with Jordan Lake water that do not exist with Lake Mickey and Little River water. PFAS levels are higher than what they are in Jordan Lake, I'm sorry, in Lake Mickey and Little River. So as we are designing, we're just now starting the process of designing that Western Intake Partnership treatment plant on Jordan Lake. And it is going to have different additional treatment technologies as part of the plant that we don't currently have today at the Brown plant and the Williams plant. So we will be selecting PFAS treatment technologies there that are appropriate and adequate to remove the PFAS from the Jordan Lake water at the levels that it exists. Did I answer all the parts of that question?
I believe you did. So we're going to move on to the next question. What can we as Durhamites do to reduce PFAS in our water sources?
I love that question. Thank you for asking that question. We can educate ourselves. We can go to these resources and use these QR codes that we've shown you tonight to learn more about what things we're using and we're bringing into our homes that may have PFAS and may be contributing to this contamination in the environment. So the best thing you can do is learn about all the different sources and think about the things that you do on a daily basis and the things that you're purchasing and the things that you're consuming and the things that you're using on a daily basis. And remember that that has consequences and we all have to make conscious decisions to take care of our water supply. So you can educate yourself and make good decisions about the types of products that you decide to use.
Okay, I believe this is the last question from the chat. What is the black material that sticks to faucets, shower heads, even fridge external water dispensers? I have to wipe it down to remove it. I think.
Are you headed out? Okay. We'll see you when you get back. Okay.
My best answer is that depends. If you would call that the 919-560-1200 and ask for a home visit, we will get your water checked out for you.
Okay, I believe, I have a huge string of questions here. I just want to make sure I've answered everyone's question.
Anything else from anyone in the room while
Yep.
Joe is checking online? Oh, did you miss one?
I'm gonna do two things. I was asked to repeat that number. So if you'd like a home visit for the water quality, that's Durham 1 call, and that's 919-560-1200. If you're having a water or sewer emergency or a water quality issue that's immediate, please call 919-560-4344 to get to our water and sewer dispatch. I believe that's all the questions I have. If we don't, oh, I'm sorry. We got one more up here.
We have a joint question. What do you think the causation was? The finished water sampling higher than the primary water on the two plots, or was the scale just different? Do you mind going back through them?
Sure. So one thing to remember when we're looking at that, and Tom touched on this a little bit, but oh, I went way too far, I'm sorry. We blend the water from Lake Mickey and Little River when we bring it into the treatment plant in a big reservoir before it goes into treatment. So, you know, in some cases, that blending ratio can be different depending on what water quality issues we might be experiencing in one lake or the other. You know, if we're having a large algae bloom in Lake Mickey at the moment and Little River isn't exhibiting that issue, we would use more water from Little River during a specific time. So some of what you're seeing in that could be sort of a result of the blending. All this animation leads to a lot of clicking. That's my fault. That's all right. So the scale on the two.
In like 2019, you're at 3 for, oh, these have different, okay. I see what
Yeah,
you're
the
saying
scale on the finished water is 0 to 8, and then the scale was 0 to 10 on the source water.
Got it.
So it looks a little, that's some of what may be contributing as well. But because of the blending, it's not just a straight comparison.
I had a different question. When you were talking about this project and also the Jordan Lake project, you were talking about the different technologies available and how for this project you were comparing, like the team was comparing the different options. I guess, what are those other options that were considered? Like,
sure. So we looked at granular activated carbon. We looked at ion exchange. Those are the ones that we actually tested. Before we got to the point of testing, we did a sort of desktop analysis to maybe rule out a couple of others and decide which ones we wanted to test. So we also talked about RO. That was another one. Are there others, Kate, that I'm forgetting? Those are the main ones.
Those were the main ones that we looked at for given the input concentration.
gotcha. And are those the same options, I guess, considered for the Jordan Lake project, or?
Yes, right now, yes, that's what's been talked about so far. Are there others, Tom, that those are the ones that are being considered? Novel sorbents, yes, that is another one. Thank you.
Sorry. Novel sorbents, which, you know, they would help remove the PFAS from the water. That's another option.
And we did do some testing with novel sorbents early on too. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Thank you so much for your time and for this presentation. My question is, what are the next steps? So you have a timeline of getting this completed by 2029, which is actually not that far away.
Right.
What are your next steps?
So the very next step will be, we're in the process now of developing a request for qualifications, RFQ, to select a design build team. So before we can, that RFQ, we're expecting to be released around the end of 2025, late fall, you know, early winter time frame. And before we can, we have to be able to outline in the RFQ what interested proposers would actually be designing and building, right? So we have a little bit of work to do with developing a criteria document that will explain that. So that is what we're working on right now with HDR. We are also currently doing some additional, more detailed jar testing to help us figure out the dose of PAC, narrow down the dose of PAC that we will need to use. We have some pretty good ideas, but we want to hone in on that with a little bit more specificity, and looking at which PAC products work best for our water. Again, we've done some testing, and we're currently in the process of doing some more detailed testing. So the next steps are to finish the testing, develop the criteria document, and release the request for qualifications. Once we release that request for qualifications, we'll get proposals from interested engineers and contractors. We'll evaluate those. We'll select a team based on their qualifications, and we will negotiate a contract with that team. We will get that contract, we will seek approval from City Council for that contract and to make that expenditure. And then we will be off to the races with designing the system. And then once the system is designed, we can start building it. Thank you for that question. Anything else?
This is the last call for questions. I don't have any more online, so.
Well, again, I'd like to thank everyone for participating and for all your great questions. As I said, this is a very important issue for our city, and it's something that we think about and we care about a lot, and we've been working very hard in water management to deal with this. So we appreciate everyone's interest and support.
All right, thanks for attending. Everybody have a good night.